Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. And today we're covering the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and the Ukraine with its North Atlantic Treaty Organization partners. Now, today there's lots of discussion in the mainstream media about an apparent Ukrainian drone strike, that took place, and the Ukrainian side, at least, is reporting that they were allegedly able to destroy a Russian Su-57 on the ground. This was not an air-to-air engagement with a Ukrainian air defense system or multi-role fighter aircraft. If, in fact, that we come to the conclusion that indeed a Su-57 was destroyed, it was destroyed on the ground. Now, a lot of the mainstream media is stating that the strike took place 500 kilometers from the Ukraine. And that's not the case. It's actually closer to 800 to possibly over 1,000 kilometers. And at the same time, the mainstream media would lead you to believe that some sort of Ukrainian slow-moving Piper Cub type drone launched this attack. That the Ukrainian intelligence is so good, they knew exactly the location of this Su-57 that is operational, that is being moved around to different locales, both at other air bases and this air base specifically, knew the location of that aircraft at the moment of that strike, allegedly, again, using a very slow-moving drone that would take hours and hours and hours to get to this location. Now, they're reporting the strike is in Volgograd, right here, formerly Stalingrad. But that's not the case. The area in which the strike occurred is located at Akhtubinsk, and it's this airbase here. So this is well to the southeast of the Russian city of Volgograd. Now, what makes this very interesting, again, is the Ukrainians stating that it was a slow-moving drone. They've given pictures of these what are essentially prop-driven, very slow-moving aircraft. Now, here's what doesn't make sense is the sensory intelligence. And that would have had to have been given by the United States or Western European allies. They would have been able to, or had to, locate this aircraft exactly where it was at the time it was being serviced and ready for further operations against the Ukrainians. Now, we still don't know if, in fact, it was a good hit, if this aircraft was, in fact, destroyed. We've seen some very blurry satellite images that the Ukrainian side has provided. But I got to tell you, if, in fact, this was a strike on this airbase, it would lead me to believe that it is a much higher probability that this was a Western or United States weapon. Now, the problem is that the weapons currently that have been delivered to the Ukrainians, okay, whether it's an ATACMS, more likely than not, the closest thing that could even get to this airbase would be a Storm Shadow or a Scalp type of system. But the reality is, even that system is not able to reach out and hit this airbase. Now, the reason I say that is that these systems are being launched by Ukrainian Su-24s. I mean, I guess it's possible that they have figured out a way to launch these systems as ground launch systems as well. But as far as I know, right now, the Ukrainians are strictly launching Storm Shadows and Scalps from Su-24s. Now, the Su-24 would have to approach eastern Ukraine well within the range of Russian S-400 and S-300 systems. And if you calculate the distance, again, you're looking at a strike in excess of 800 kilometers. And that exceeds the range of the Storm Shadow. So then the question is what system is being used to strike at Russian targets deep inside the Russian Federation? Well, the answer to that is we don't know. And more likely than not, it is a system other than a weapon system that has reportedly been delivered to the Ukrainians. And that would mean an escalation of the conflict. Furthermore, in all probability, at the same time this unknown weapon is being used against this locale, the real-time sensory information, the real-time intelligence, most likely coming from satellite systems, space-based systems, to observe real-time where these Su-57s are located at. So if the Kremlin, if the Russian Federation can come to the conclusion that the United States is using other weapons than which it has reported to handing over to the Ukrainians, at the same time U.S. space-based systems are being used in real time to strike Russian targets on the ground. Look, basically the United States or a Western European power, possibly France, the United Kingdom, is now directly involved in this conflict. You just don't use clandestine weapon systems that you hand over to an ally. In all probability, the system that was used to strike this area, this airbase, was a system that has not been announced yet, and quite possibly a non-open source system. A non-open source system. Now, this system that was used against the Russians would have to be a low observable type of system. And again, at the same time, space-based systems to locate the aircraft on the ground to then try and destroy that aircraft would have also been used. So right now, look, the United States and certain Western European nation states are in all probability much more involved in this conflict than what the mainstream media is reporting and what the average American can really get their heads around at this point. The United States is involved in this conflict, much more so than what is being reported. And especially if we can confirm that this strike took place and a Su-57 was in fact damaged on the ground, there is no doubt, absolutely no doubt, that the United States and or a Western European nation state is now directly intervening in this conflict. Or at least intelligence agencies, more probable than not from the United States, are testing new weapon systems. New non-open source weapon systems designed to be launched near 1,000 kilometers from a enemy target and then strike that target. That's what's happening. That is some distance. And back to, if we go over to the actual distance. So if they were to launch that, and they would have to have launched it well behind the line of contact, probably closer to the Dnieper River. So if we calculate that distance just to Volgograd, you're looking at 609 kilometers, and then down to where the strike took place. I mean, you do the math. And to say that this was a slow-moving Ukrainian drone, that is simply nonsensical. Because even if it was, hypothetically, right, they're still using the sensory data from the United States. But the problem is using that sensory data and then using this very slow-moving drone that is traveling a couple hundred kilometers an hour at best, right? So you're looking at a time on target of probably 3-4 hours at best. So my guess is something else is being used. What that something else is, it's difficult to say, but as I've talked about before, this war is escalating. And there's probably going to be a Russian response. What that Russian response is, difficult to say at this point. But there's going to be a response. If especially the Russians come to the conclusion that the U.S. is using its classified weapon systems or other weapon systems other than those reported to being handed over to the Ukrainians to strike deep inside of Russia. I don't believe this was a Ukrainian system. More to come. Thank you for joining us today. As always, have a good day.